Hello, I'm Powell, award-winning singer-songwriter for Random Mind Records. And if you enjoy what you hear, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click the bell for notifications. All right, now I'll shut up and get to the music.
Come on, Harry, we want to say goodnight to you.
Very 80s.
Holding me back, gravity's holding me back. I want you to hold out the palm of your hand. Why don't we leave it at that? Nothing to say when everything gets in the way. Seems you cannot be replaced.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there, 30 seconds, so I won't get into any copyright entanglements. Few things. First, I'm only going to be sampling about a minute of these songs just for time's sake. Also, I'm probably going to be talking a lot more than I usually do on these videos, so if that's not something you're interested in, feel free to move on. Totally understand. Also, I'm having some technical difficulties here with my being able to capture the sound if I'm not streaming from YouTube, so I'm just listening to this through my computer speakers. I'm not sure what the audio is actually going to sound like. On the final edit, I may be able to do some stuff and get some better quality audio for you to listen to. The reason I'm doing this, I'm a voting member of the Recording Academy, which just basically means that every year I get to vote in the Grammys. This year, I missed the first couple of rounds, just missed the deadline. The last round I want to make sure to vote in. And when I opened up the ballot, there were so few songs and artists that I actually knew that I only voted in a couple of categories that I was even eligible for because I felt like I just couldn't give a fair shake to these artists in these other categories, so I just didn't know the songs. So unless I went and listened to all this material that had come out over last year that I'd missed, I just couldn't in good conscience cast my vote. So I realized that I've gotten to the point where I'm pretty much completely detached from modern mainstream music. And it's really been probably 10, maybe even 15 years since I was really attached and you knew every song that was on the Billboard Hot 100. I'm not there anymore. So I decided I would pull up Spotify's Top Tracks 2022 USA, listen to the first 10, and see what I've been missing this last year. So this is the first one, and I'll listen to another 30 seconds, and then I'll give you my opinion.
And I'm the one who'll stay. Oh, in this world, it's just us. You know it's not the same as it was. In this world, it's just us. You know it's not the same as it was. As it was.
Pause it right there, so copyright.
As it was. You know it's not the same. Answer the phone.
Okay, all right, I got a general feel of the song, and I understand not listening to the entire song. My opinion could change if I were to listen to the whole thing. But right off, first of all, I think that Harry Styles is a good artist. I think that he has brought back kind of a Mick Jagger, David Bowie hybrid and brought it into the 21st century. I think that's the feel he's going for as an artist. And at this point in history, we've had all this great art that's come before us. Originality at this point now comes from being able to pick the best parts of what's come before and combine them in new ways. And I think that Harry Styles is able to do that. And there's some Harry Styles songs I've heard that I've liked. Now, what I'm about to say, this is not a slam against Harry or his fans at all. This particular song is not my cup of tea, and I'll tell you why. It's got the same problem that I have with a lot of songs that have come out in the last 13 years. It's heavily influenced by the 80s. I'm not a big 80s guy. It's never my cup of tea. And this particular song is just steeped in 80s music. And besides my own personal aversion to it, I feel like that it's time to move on from that 80s inspired sound. Basically, ever since the 90s, we've been on a 30-year rotation The 90s were heavily inspired by a lot of material from the 60s, and then the 2000s had a lot of 70s inspiration, and then the 2010s we had a lot of 80s inspiration. I was expecting we hit the 2020s and we start being inspired by the 90s and maybe even the 60s again, since the 60s is inspired a lot of 90s. But instead, we're 3 years into the 2020s, and I'm still hearing this 80s sound in pop music, and I'm not sure why we haven't moved on, why we haven't continued to progress beyond that 80s inspiration. One hypothesis I had was the pandemic. If things were shut down for 2 years, even creatively, artistically, in the music industry, and I wonder if just kind of stunted the continued development of pop music, because I still feel like that we're here in this 80s sound, and it's really time to move on, in my opinion. And I would be saying that, I feel like I would still be saying that even if I were a fan of that 80s sound. So let's move on. This is number 2. This is Heat Waves by Glass Animals. I have no idea who that is. Drop in the comments who Glass Animals is. Really low there. I bet it's going to kick up in a minute. I'll pause it right there for copyright issues. Obviously, a lot of process effects on the vocals.
Sometimes all I think about is you. Late nights in the middle of June. Heat waves been faking me out. Can't make you happier now. Sometimes all I think about is you. Late nights in the middle of June. Heat waves been faking me out. Can't make you.
All right, so first, I can't even tell you what genre this is. I guess it would be considered pop. It's got an R&B feel to the rhythm. A lot of heavy process effect vocals on the verse there. I had no idea what was being said, so I can't really comment on the lyrics. Could not hear it. Maybe I could hear it if I could have listened to it through headphones. I don't know. But as far as the chorus, literally, when somebody criticizes or somebody's talking about rudimentary song lyrics, they literally say, oh, that's Moon and June stuff, meaning that it's sappy, it's cliche. This song literally had rhymed you and June. And I'm sure the songwriters, whoever this was, if it was Glass Animals wrote it, if somebody else wrote it for them, because again, I have no idea who they are, I'm sure they went for exactly what they were going for here, and that's fine. There is room for those types of lyrics. I've written those types of lyrics myself, but don't hear a lot of depth here, and the term freaking me out in the chorus, as the term people use it, I just feel like in 20 years that's not going to be a term, that's not going to still be in the vernacular, and it's going to really date the song, which the same thing is true with 60s material that I like that uses the word groovy. Nobody uses that anymore. But yeah, for me, wasn't really much there. And if you're a Glass Animals fan, this is not a slam on them. This is not a slam on you as a fan. It's just I'm looking for a little bit more depth to the lyrics in my music. All right, so let's move on. This is Bad Habit by Steve Lacy. Again, no idea who Steve Lacy is. If you know, let me know in the comments.
I wish I knew you wanted me. I wish I knew. I wish I knew you wanted me. I wish I knew. I wish I knew you wanted me. What you do, what you do. Made a move, could have made a move. If I knew, I'd be with you. It's too late to pursue. I bite my tongue, it's a bad habit.
Again, I hear a lot of 80s influence here. I also hear some 70s which makes it for me a little bit more palatable. And again, this is not a slam on the artist. I'm just talking about my personal taste at this point. Again, lyrically, you had some of those oohs. I have to go back and listen to the exact lyrics there, but kind of what would be considered more cliche songwriting. But again, if that's what he's going for, that's his prerogative. That's what he's going for as an artist. That's fine. I'm going to play some more here. I got about another 30 seconds and see what we get.
Kinda mad that I didn't take a step at it. Thought you were too good for me, my dear. Never gave me time of day, my dear. It's okay, things happen for reasons that I think are sure. Yeah, I wish I knew. I wish I knew you wanted me. I wish I knew. I wish I knew you wanted me. I wish I knew. Yeah.
Very 80s right there. Honestly, I actually hear some 60s as we go along, kind of Beatlesque stuff that I actually like. Personal opinion, I didn't absolutely hate it. It's not something that I would really listen to. I liked it better than the first two tracks that I've heard so far. Vocally, very interesting. I'd like to hear... He's probably singing like that specifically because that's how he wants to sing, because most artists have versatility in their vocals and they sing like they want to. But I noticed whenever he'd go with the falsetto, there seemed to be some crack in there. I'm not sure if that was intentional or that's just how his voice sounds. But I'd like to check out some more from him because there were some things in there that I did like. All right, number 4, this is Me Porto Bonito by Bad Bunny and Chencho Corleone. Now, I've heard of Bad Bunny. I know nothing about him. I've heard of him. Let's check it out.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Ay. En la guagua se queda el olor de tu perfume. Tú eres una vaca, yo soy un que soy lo que no.
This is actually in Spanish, okay?
Ella sabe que está buenota y no la presumen. Si yo fuera tu gato, subiera una foto los viernes y los lunes.
Pause for just a minute. Okay, so that one, I've actually had 2 years of Spanish in high school and then a semester of Spanish in college. I'm pretty good with written and having some time where I can translate. Pronunciation's decent, okay. I can't really hear it well, so I couldn't really translate that very well at all. I can't hear fast enough to translate. So without looking up the lyrics, I don't know what the song is about. Musically, again, I'm not even sure what you would classify this as. Pop, R&B, I don't know. I did hear a lot of electronic instrumentation. That's something else that I've heard a lot over the last 10 years, which is why I've kind of got out of mainstream music, is the turn toward plugins and synthesized instrumentation instead of live instrumentation. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I read Bad Bunny, he actually was the most listened artist globally on Spotify. So, and that's great, good for him. But, and again, this is nothing against the artist or the fan base. That didn't do anything for me. So let's move on. This is First Class Jack Harlow. Once again, I have no idea who that is. So let me know in the comments if you know who Jack Harlow is. Let's go.
I've been throw up the
Probably gonna have to bleep some of these lyrics out in the following video.
And I can put you in. I've been throw up the
All right, so this is, would this be considered rap? I'm not sure what genre you classify this in. I get the general idea of the song. This has been repeated before. Again, this is no slam on Jack Harlow or the fan base. This is not my genre at all. So it doesn't sound that much different than that particular style of music that was out whenever I was listening to mainstream radio 10-15 years ago. So it doesn't feel like a lot's changed there. And this even may be an old song. Like, I don't know if all these are actually from 2022. They're just the top tracks of 2022 USA. So maybe that was a little older. If you know, let me know in the comments. All right, let's move. This is another Bad Bunny. I'm probably just going to do 30 seconds on this one because we're running really long here already. Very 80s reminiscent right off the bat.
Ey, Titi me preguntó si tengo muchas novias. Muchas novias, hoy tengo a una, mañana a otra, ey. Pero no hay boda. Titi me preguntó si tengo muchas novias. Muchas novias, hoy tengo a una, mañana a otra. Me las voy a llevar a todas pa' un VIP, un VIP.
Yes, it sounded rap, and I heard there at the end it was kind of going into the Latin vibe, which he's obviously a Spanish-speaking artist. A lot of synthesized instrumentation there. We'll move on to, that was number 6, is number 7, and this is Stay by Kid LAROI with Justin Bieber. Bieber I know. Kid LAROI, not so much, so let me know about him in the comments section. Here we go. 80s.
I do the same thing I told you that I never would. I told you I changed, even when I knew I never could. Know that I can't.
That was a little different last time I heard him.
As good as you. I need you to stay, need you to stay.
Was that Kid LAROI?
Get drunk, wake up, I'm wasted still. I realize the time that I wasted. I feel like you can't feel the way I feel.
Gonna have to bleep that out.
Be right here. If you can't be right here, I do the same thing I told you.
All right, yeah, that totally was not my bag at all. Let's move on to 8, and this is Kate Bush. Hounds of Love 2018 Remaster. Okay, I think this is actually an 80s song remastered, maybe? Let's check it out. Yeah, this is actually, correct me if I'm wrong, this was actually an 80s track, and this is the 2018 remaster.
It doesn't hurt me. Do you wanna feel how it feels?
Yeah, okay, that's strange. That's strange. I wonder why it was so popular in 2022. Is it because the 80s have resurged so much, and that's what people are listening to, and they all sound like they're actually from the 80s, so an 80s song made it in the top 10 on Spotify US. Very interesting. All right, number 9. This is Sweater Weather by The Neighborhood. Don't know The Neighborhood. If you do, drop in the comments. I like his voice.
In California with my toes in the sand, use the sleeves of my sweater. Let's have an adventure.
Okay.
Head in the clouds, but my gravity centered. Touch my neck and I'll touch yours. You and those little high-waisted shorts. Oh, she knows what I think about.
I gotta stop it. I don't get in trouble. I was kind of feeling that one. Hold on. Okay, I like that. It was more my speed. more alternative rock, but not like 90s alternative rock, more the alternative rock that was coming out, again, 10 years ago. I loved his voice. I thought it was a very cool voice. It reminded me a bit of Dan Lewis from Augustana and somebody else that I can't place right now. I like the effects on the vocals. Some of the instrumentation I wasn't wild about. The lyrics, I have to go back and listen a little bit closer there, but it's called Sweater Weather, and I got caught there at the end. It said about his holes in his sweater. Yeah, I'd actually like maybe to check that out a little bit more and maybe check out The Neighborhood too. Okay, so that's really the first song that I've heard on this that really struck me on a personal level. So it's interesting. All right, this is the last one. This is Dark Red. This is another Steve Lacy. All right, so we're going to hear another one from Steve Lacy here. See what we got. Okay, I like that.
There's something bad about to happen to me.
Okay.
I don't know what, but I feel it coming.
Totally different genre from the
Might be
first
so
Steve Lacy
sad,
you checked
might
out.
leave my nose running. I just hope she don't wanna leave.
Pause for just a minute.
Don't you give me up, please don't give up on me.
I had chord progression.
I belong with you, only you, baby. My girl, only you, baby. Only you, darling, only you, baby. Only you, my girl, only you, baby. Only you, darling, only you. Something bad is about to happen to me.
It's interesting. It's weird. I don't say that in a negative way. It's just odd. It's different from a lot of songs, particularly what we've heard on this list. It reminds me of a lot of some late 60s stuff that I like. The Kinks, Sunday Afternoon, it had a little bit of that kind of vibe in there. Some of that mid to late 60s stuff, both British and American, weird, kind of had a darkness to it, maybe some interesting chord progressions there. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And he was doing a little bit different vocal style here. So that's the top 10 tracks of 2022 in the USA. So now I kind of got a little bit more of a feel on what's popular out now. And I got to say though, it's not my bag. And I don't know, I may have gotten to the point, there's something called taste freeze, which is when you get to a certain point in your development, your tastes are set. You're not going to start liking something that's different from what you have already liked up to that point, for lack of a better way to phrase it. And I feel like I've reached that point with my personal taste. I guess I'm just an old fuddy-duddy at this point, but most of this stuff really just didn't hit me. But I'm curious to see where we're going to go here. Again, I feel like that we're in a 13-year span of being stuck back in the 80s musically with a lot of popular stuff. I don't know if we are going to move on into that 90s phase where everything starts being reminiscent of the 90s, being inspired by the 90s. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. What do you think about these songs? And what do you think about modern popular music in general? And where do you think it's going? So we'll get back to our regular reaction videos in the next video. So stay tuned and we'll see you then.